Hello again, it's Laura at Hyperstamper. Today I have a set of journals. So these are going to be sold in a set, and they're both over 100 years old, these books, and I really love this one. But they are what I would call minis. There's not as many signatures just because of the size, and because I wanted to make some that everybody could afford, even though these are already super inexpensive. These were like $25 US, I guess, a piece, depending on the exchange rate of the minute. It seems to change every second. But I want to show you the insides of each of these very quickly. And look at this one. This was actually, it's a book called Archie's Mistake that I've not seen before. So I did cover the title there with this piece here. And as you know, I only use real ephemera. So just in case anybody thought I printed that out, I didn't. It's actually the top of an antique book page. Dr. Hudson's secret journal. So I've used that there. And I'll start with this one. This is beautiful green and yellow and brown. So I've got the ribbons there to match. And inside, actually I have the original first page in it. Look at this beautiful inscription. The yellow usually meant that it was taken out of a library or out of circulation. There's the original page, 1920. Look at that beautiful aging, all those aging spots. I love it. Kind of like my hands. Wah, wah. There is a wonderful little children's book page there from the 40s. This is just an old doily here. This I turned into a journaling envelope with a nice cluster on it. And this is a vintage music sheet. I just think it's so happy and fun. Vintage upholstery fabric there. This is an antique book page in itself for journaling. And this is a over 50-year-old Wildflowers of America piece. This one you can find everywhere in America. I love the little maps in the corner so you know exactly where they're from. And this piece here is a beautiful piece from the early 1900s. This I love. I've not seen this very often. So this was this piece here, which looks like it maybe came out of a book, but this young lady stuck a stamp on it and mailed it to this person. And yeah, and it probably arrived safe and sound. These I use for journaling. Journal on the back, but it is very old Monopoly money. And nice little children's book page pocket there. And again, this is from the early 1900s. And look at these wonderful antique stamps. Aren't they fantastic? This is pre-Queen Elizabeth. So you know they're very old. And then we've got this vintage bird book page here. Nice fuzzy cardstock. And this is the cover, obviously, of a science book. So it's a cloth, and I quite love those. That's another page topper from an antique book. We've got vintage sewing instructions. We've got another wonderful little children's book page journaling spot with antique paper. That is a 1950s Lone Ranger page, which I love. Vintage music sheet. I love this one from the 1920s. That's Goldilocks. And then this is a quad pocket. So we've got, this is the inscription here from a student, Delano Jarrett. I have a wonderful story about him if anybody who buys journals wants to know. It's a sad story, but an important one. And then this is a vintage card of Niagara Falls. And look at this wonderful 1920s photo. Isn't it awesome? These people are very happy. And that photo is taken at Niagara Falls. So I thought those two should go together. And then, whoopsie, this is a very, very old little collector card. This one is from Will Cigarettes. And they were very popular. And that is super, super old. I love this little middle page here. Sorry, 1950s, 1920s storybook page. A little flip chart there with the spine of this book attached there. That is a vintage book dust cover. All kinds of fun clusters, sewing patterns. There's another fun cluster, children's book pages, 1950s recipe book page. This is from the 1800s, super special. I love it. I hope the new owner of this journal loves it as much as I did. I've got another antique backing journaling page here and a vintage recipe card that was never used. This is a student's workbook page from the 50s. They got an A on that. And another fun, colorful wildflower page. This is very special, so I didn't attach anything to it. These are letters from the 1800s, how to write a letter, and these ones are really cool. How to write a letter and answer the letter to an advertisement for a milliner's apprentice, hat making. Application for a situation as parish schoolmistress. How cool. Another little journaling card here with antique paper on the back. That's that 1800s piece again, 1950s, children's book page. I just think it's so special. So that's the first one in the set. And then you'll also receive this one. So you can keep both or give one away. Maybe one's a friendship one. You can each have one, mom and daughter. This one also, wonderful cluster pockets, lots and lots of journaling cards. Always know there's antique paper on the back of the journaling cards. That is a hand-typed antique research paper. That is the original first page of this dictionary book. And well, there's so much in here, so I'll try to go quickly. A really old Canadian stamp. And I just love that. That's from the 50s. A recipe for a barbecue. And a 1930s Flinch card. Receipt, not recipe. And I love this. I left this pocket blank so you could tuck in anything you want there. And there's a little birthday cake page. So if you know somebody who's having a birthday, this is probably a really good one to get. Another very old 1800s piece there. And another piece there. Antique paper always on the back. 1930s school book page on bookkeeping. A sewing instruction page with a blank back. Those are hard to find. Another 1930s children's book page, and I pulled that from the top of an antique book thought book. That is a vintage decoration for a shower. More recipes, and here's another, this is another quad pocket here. Look how cool that is. That came from an antique book, and antique paper on the back as well that I attached for journaling. 1960s payday card, so that's vintage. An even older Monopoly card that can journal on the back of that, and this antique transit ticket from Britain. I love monarch butterflies. And then we've got more dictionary pages. Look at this little teeny tiny photo. Again, that is another Niagara Falls family photo. I love it, and that is from the early 1920s. More recipes, more vintage crochet. This is from a vintage bird watcher's journal. And I love this, early 1900s. I added more paper on top of a dictionary page from this book. Children's book pages. This is just hilarious. I just think it's funny. It came from a vintage book, but you can journal on the back of there as well. Here comes the wind. Awesome. And that brings us almost to the end. We've got these sweet little children's book pages, more journaling pages here and here. It's just, they're actually quite full. Gosh, maybe I should raise the price. No, I'm just kidding. I can't now. I've already said it and I don't want to reshoot this 100-year-old banknote. There we go. Okay, so I hope you love these as much as I love making them. And you can find them at hyperstamper.etsy.com. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.